Welcome, everyone, to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. I am your host, Sonia Jones of GIP Financial, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And today, I have, I will probably say one of our top students for GIP Financials. I mean, what hasn't she done? She has done all the things you want when it comes to being a service-based provider and having someone that's coachable and not only just, taking your words and doing the work and seeing the fruit of, your words and their labor is just a blessing. So I definitely wanted to make sure that I had Dr. Nadine Duncan on, the owner and CEO of the Traveling Black Women
Nothing much.
Network.
Thank you for that amazing
Dr.
introduction.
Nadine, what's going on?
Oh man, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I have to give, honor where honor is due. If I have flowers, I'll give them to you. Because you are just a sweetie pie. So let's get into it because we got so much rich information that we're going to talk about today because we've been talking about grants, we've been talking about, knowing your numbers and all that. So Dr. Nadine's got all of the good ingredients to put in the pot today. So, Dr. Nadine, let's get started and tell us a little bit about the Traveling Black Women Network.
Actually. It started off as just a travel guide, Diary of a Traveling Black Woman, a guide to international travel. And it just started growing from there. I had that one guide. I really wanted people to start traveling. I had just moved back from Abu Dhabi. And I was like, okay, everyone's not going to pick up a book. But I felt really passionate about getting people to see that travel was pretty easy. And that we needed to do it for our mental health, for our ability to balance our life with our work, all of those things. So from there, I went on to creating a Facebook group, and then I had my Instagram page, and it just continued to grow. And then I started adding additional books, and then as the amount of books grew, I'm up to 12 now. Then I was like, you know what? People still aren't really reading like that, so let me introduce some more things. So I introduced the vlog, the YouTube channel. Now that was kind of slow moving, trying to figure out how to do that. Then I introduced doing blogs, shorter reading, and then I finally introduced doing podcasts last year. So now I have an area where no matter how you get your information, you can lean into the network and try to find some type of resource in order to build your trip, figure out what it even feels like to go to these certain places, those types of things. So in general, what it has now become, instead of just a book where I started off as just a publisher, it is now a travel resource network. So that's who we are.
I love it. I love it. And especially when Latasha and I first met you and was hearing more about your company and more specifically, I guess the niche in itself, it was just like, wow, right? Because there's so many different, experiences that are out there, but most importantly, how it affects, Black women specifically, right? And the Black experience. So just being very intentional about
Thank you.
educating people in that vein is just amazing. It really is. It's really cool. Absolutely. So let's talk about how we met. So we met through a program through the nonprofit Our Village United. It's called the Her Pro Bono program. And it is a business cohort accelerator, incubator, whatever those aiders you want to call it, for those programs. And the cool thing about the Her Pro Bono program is that they provide technical assistance. And for those of y'all who have been listening to me, you know that incubators and accelerators are just one of the ways that we see grants utilized, right? We talk about grants aren't free, right? So it's not like the money coming out of the sky anymore. You got to put some skin in the game. So in this particular program, the founders, so Dr. Nadine was one of the many founders that was selected for the program. And she was linked to, I think you guys had a round of 2 providers that you got to connect with. So the providers range from like marketing, business operations, finance, and I think branding, brand management, things like that. So, talk a little bit about your experience, Dr. Nadine, with the Her Pro Bono program, like how you
Well, it's
found out
interesting
about
because
it,
I live in
and then
Atlanta
the
and
two
I
service
live not too
providers
far from
that you
Front Street
connected
Market.
with.
So I've always seen the Village Market. And I started following them and all of that. And then I started seeing that they have programs. I'm like, they have programs. I'm like, I wonder what it's like because, of course, you go in there and you realize these are all independent, Black-owned businesses. You're like, I wonder how I can get my stuff in here. So I started kind of, snooping around a little bit, finding out a little bit more. And I realized they had programs. So I was like, okay, Her Pro Bono, that sounds pretty interesting. And they had Elevate and I think one other that caught my attention. But Her Pro Bono is the one I decided to apply to. So I was like, I feel pretty confident about where I am, but I'm one of those people who, that phrase, what is it? Something about like you're a master of none. Something about you could do everything, but you're not a master at anything. Yes, that's it. That's it. Jack of all trades,
I was
master of
jack of
none. That
all
is me
trades
all
and a
day. I can
master
do a
of none.
little bit of everything, but just a little bit, just enough to kind of get me started. Um, so I felt like, okay, now that I've laid the groundwork with knowing how to do just a little bit of
Mhm.
everything, I need somebody who is a master of something to come and teach me how to do something. So I applied, got in, and it's crazy because when I got in, it was right when I got into another creative program and I was like, oh my goodness, I'm getting into all these programs I wanted to get into, but now it's all at the same time, you know. But it turned out to be really, really fulfilling. After that first initial, like, anxious, like, oh my goodness, I'm trying to do all of this at once, then I was able to just kind of settle in. And it immediately taught me, like, if this is something that you want, things are going to come up all at the same time at times. So you're going to have to figure out how do you navigate this so that way you keep winning or you keep,
Mhm.
figuring things out. So I figured my life out, got everything on track, and started working with my first provider. So the first provider you work with for a couple of weeks, a couple of months really, and then we move on to the second provider, and you were my second provider, and it really worked hand in hand because the first one was all about strategy. Like, what do I need to do? How do I need to reach out to people? What is my business? And I think that really gave me a good motivation on how to define my business. So
Mhm.
even with the things that she may not have explicitly taught me, it became things that I was learning as I was like, oh, if I need to do
Mhm.
this, then that means I need to do this too. So before you know it, I was, finishing my one pager and my brand kit and my brand profile and like all
Mhm.
these different things in jail. And then once I got that, it was like, okay, now I need some money to come in.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
my next provider is an accountant. Great. Because I don't want money to start coming in and I don't know what to do with it properly. I don't know how to manage it properly. And I end up right back at square one. So that was a perfect transition into then working with you because then you were able to say, okay,
Mhm.
let me see what you got and let's work through it. And everything that you told me, I was like, it was like light bulb after light bulb after light bulb. Because again, with me being that person who could do a little bit of everything, I was like, I can add and subtract. I got this. Whatever. But I had no idea how categories was impacting my bottom line. I had no idea what it
Right.
meant to make sure that what was showing up in my account was the same thing that was showing up in QuickBooks. I just figured if 3 - 2 = 1, I'm fine. Okay, great. So it was a great program because even though it wasn't cash, it was so much
Right.
valuable learning
Right.
that I really benefited from, going through that program. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. So many nuggets in what you just said. So yeah, so especially one, I definitely want to talk about again, just re-emphasizing what you said about if you have these programs at your disposal
yeah,
in your selective form, don't take them for granted, right? Because although, especially with this specific program, I know it might not apply to all programs, but our Village United,
yeah.
compensated the providers for giving y'all, that information. So again, that is a
Exactly,
grant because
exactly.
you're supposed to be paying for it. You didn't have to pay for it, right? And you get expert level, support. And so just to recap what we did with Dr. Nadine, because although she already had QuickBooks, we were able to
Mhm.
categorize her 2024 expenses. We walked her through, how to properly categorize as well as applies. We applied some rules to some recurring, transactions. We also talked a little bit about her entity and how to separate some of the entity transactions, because she has an entity and other, little businesses within that are of the same industry. Make sure I say that. Because you can't have the lawnmower service in the aquarium and all that. You can't have all that in QuickBooks. Right. Everything is still related to travel. So we showed her how to use tags, right, to separate, those transactions. So she can still, in QuickBooks, you can run a P&L just on those tags alone, right? So you can really, dig deep into your information. And then last but certainly not least, we reconciled. We learned a lesson about deleting transactions, didn't we, Dr. Nadine? We showed did. Didn't we learn a lesson about that? And excluding transactions. We sure did. And we also went through and created her budget for 2024. We took the P&L, we exported it out, we zhuzhed it up, and we took the data. I think did we take the data from 2023 and we used it to plan her 2024 budget, right? So, I mean, we did a whole lot, in those 3 months of time, right? And so, segueing into the fruit. So, what happened when Dr. Nadine and we got together and started working on her numbers? She also took that information and applied for a grant. And y'all, what I've been telling y'all is that when you apply for grants, right, it's a marathon. It is not a sprint, right? And I'm going to let Dr. Nadine tell this story about how she applied for this particular grant. And this was the Boss Network grant that was in partnership with Sage.
So I applied for that grant 3 times.
Tell us, Dr. Nadine, about that grant process.
I think they first started in 2021. So I applied them. I'm connected to Hello Alice. So I applied through Hello Alice. Didn't get it. And I was like, all right. But I've saved all my applications to be like, okay, what am I not quite doing right? And I know one of the biggest things was I wasn't really telling the story correctly. I shouldn't say correctly. I wasn't telling it in a way that it can translate from what I'm thinking to what I want people to understand, So the first 2 years, that's really what I focused on. How do I sharpen up the storytelling part? But it wasn't until the 3rd year where now I'm getting into numbers and I'm like, you know what? In this budget area where they ask me what I want to do with the money, instead of being this flower, and then I'm going to, and thus therefore, and saying all that stuff, let me just stick some numbers in here. This is how much this is what I need to pay for the podcast producer. This is how much I need to pay for a travel guide design editor. This is how much I need to pay for this. This is how I plan to break it down. And I put that in there and I got the grant. I was like, man, so is this what I needed to do differently all this time? I'm over here with all these flowery words, synonyms and whatnot. What's a better word to use for, doing all of that. And what they wanted to see is, well, what you going to do with this money we give you? And I was able to break that down, just very concretely without a whole lot of extra words. And I think that's really what did it. That's the biggest difference that I see from the first 2 applications to the 3rd one, is the fact that I broke down those numbers and I said, this is exactly what I'm going to use this money for. And that's exactly what I've been using it for. Yep.
That's what I'm talking about. I love it. So I specifically asked Dr. Nadine that question because I wanted y'all to hear it first from somebody who not only did it, but actually got the grant the 3rd time. Y'all, so I cannot stress that enough. The more detailed you are, especially with those numbers, the better you will look, because it shows that you took the time to actually shop the numbers. You know what your program needs, right? And then that will also communicate the level of impact. So I just want to take it a step further as far as what Dr. Nadine did. So with that grant application, she put on there that she had the total number, and then she broke it down. I think she had like 5 specific categories. She had the amount, and then on top of that, she had for every like contract or service she needed, she also put this particular pot of money is going to help me for this amount of time. Right? You can't get any more specific than that, y'all. Right? So I think that helped out a lot, because now we're going to move on to the next big thing she did. Right? So as soon as she got that grant and we, went in and, made sure that we implemented, those expenses and stuff into her budget, cohort 2 was about to end. And so at the end of cohort 2 for her pro bono, they had the opportunity for the founders to pitch, right? And Dr. Nadine was able to be a finalist as one of the 4 pitch contestants. And I want her to walk through like what we did with those numbers.
Yeah, so
how
now
we
that I
put them
have a
things into
stronger
that
idea
pitch
what my
deck.
budget was,
What we do,
what
Dr.
numbers were getting
Nadine?
ready to look like, that's what I put in my slides. So I had to learn about what was it, the SAM and the sum, like, trying to figure out the amount of people that I could target and, kind of breaking that down. So that was a real learning curve for me because I'm in education, or I was in education. So that was something that was new. Like, okay, how do I narrow this down and present it to someone and say, this is how much I think I can make based on the people available. So did that. But then of course the next step is, okay, what have I been making so far? And that was also something that was new to me. That was one of my biggest struggles, was how do I figure out a budget? I know how to spend money, but how do I tell you what I think I'm going to spend or what I think I need? And I was able to take the information that I got from QuickBooks after categorizing, so now my numbers are right, and use that in a chart to say, I have been steadily making money over the years. And let me tell you, like, if someone had asked me if my business is making money, I'd be like, no, not yet. I would think of it like that. But it wasn't until we did those categories together, we did those tags, that I could then pull that from QuickBooks and put it on a slide and say, look, like, we're not millionaires yet, but we are steadily increasing year by year. Like, we are actually making some money. So if you're trying to invest in me, we're doing well. But I wouldn't have been able to say that or articulate that at all before. So that was really good. And then that also gave me a little bit of courage, even just talking to you, to figure out how to ask for money now, how to say, okay, this is what I need. I need $10,000. I need $5,000, because that's not something I was comfortable with, but I think I wasn't comfortable with it because I didn't know what I was making in the first place. So if I know that I can make $35,000 so far in a year, then I feel a little bit more confident about asking for $5,000. Because if I'm thinking in my mind, well, I'm only making about $30, then of course, you feel a little bit of shame or whatnot to ask somebody for a couple thousand. Like, why you need a couple $1,000? You only made $30 last year. But actually now being able to look at those numbers, look at those categories, it's like, oh, wait a minute. I'm making some money, so that means I have a right to ask for some money. So, yep. Yeah, it was a huge confidence.
I saw the confidence. I saw the confidence.
So, but yes, so that's how that impacted the pitch. Us being able to, I think if we hadn't worked together and I was doing a pitch because that was my first one, I would not have known how to really handle that area. I would have not been confident in that area at all, and I probably would have just been up there trying to use words to tell them I'm doing great and not anything concrete that they could walk away from and say, okay, wait, well, what about your numbers? So yeah. Uh-huh.
I love it. I love it. So let's recap, shall we? So let's talk about these numbers a little bit, because I want to reemphasize again that just because you make money in the sale, which is great. We all in the business to receive sales, right? But that doesn't give the full picture. The real flex is how much of that money are you keeping after you've generated, how much it costs for you to generate the product or the service, right? Are you pricing it correctly so you can have the proper profit, right? You understand what I'm saying? So you got to have that information first. But then also what Dr. Nadine was saying, having accounting software is important, because once we ran her P&L, she was able to see how much her business was making, year to year. She was also able to see from that, the progress that she was making. And she should be able to communicate from year to year what worked, what didn't work, right? So she'll know how to communicate because all that information is just letting the pitch judges and the grantors know that you know your business. That's all that is saying, right? So that's the first part. And then the second part, remember I said that her entity structure, she has like, entity here, but then she has little mini businesses here, right? So then she's able to communicate like, hey, not only do I have this entity, but I can also tell you which one of these businesses is profiting the most, which one is our primary revenue generator, right? And then she can able to, so the money that we're making here, we're able to, maybe invest in this and do this, that, and the third, right? So now you're also talking vision and strategy. You see how these numbers are working, y'all? So the more detailed that you are in talking about it, the more street cred you're going to get. And then we also prepare her for some of the questions that the judge may ask, right? As far as those numbers are concerned, right? So it's just, you got to know your numbers. I can't stress it enough, y'all. But the more detailed you are, the better, more confident. You see how Dr. Nadine, she took that thing to the side and cocked it. Like that. Did you see Dr. Nadine? That's what happens when you know your numbers. Just I'm just exactly. So let's talk about the takeaways then, Dr. Nadine. So what were the main takeaways you had through about the grant experience? What were some of your personal takeaways from that?
And I'm like, okay, what are some things that might be different that I don't know yet? But the biggest thing was, even though they want this narrative, they still are going to want to see numbers. So I have to be able to balance that qualitative with the quantitative. So that was one of the big takeaways. Because I'm more of a qualitative person. I like writing, so I'm that's how I think I'm telling the story. But the reality is, people don't want to read all that, right? They want to get down to business, especially if they have 10 of them to read 20, 30, 40. So that's one thing that stuck with me. Like, okay. I got to make sure that I know and understand my numbers in order to ask for more, what else has stood up? I would say the other thing is also continuing to apply. I could have just been like, okay, not this one, and found another one, but I kept going back to that one. I kept going back to the Boss Network because for some reason I just felt like I like what this grant is doing. It's focusing on Black women. It's focused on Black women entrepreneurs. We see what's going on with the Fearless Fund, so it's not easy, right? It's not easy for Black women to even support other Black women at this time, So I'm like, I want to keep trying. And I think that allowed me to just kind of keep refining what I was doing instead of just looking at it as a failure or a total loss and putting it to the side. So that was a huge lesson. I think pitch wise, the big lesson there for me was, now with the grant, you've figured out a better way to write about your business in order to get more money. But now you have to develop a better way to speak about your business to get more money. So even though I feel like I nailed the number portion, I still am realizing, okay, I need to work on now telling the story a little bit better, recognizing, what people want to hear, what people want to see, all of those kind of things. So all of the whole journey, I would say there was something to take apart from every bit that showed me that I really need a strong balance with my qualitative, with everything that I say to describe my business, and the quantitative, everything to really describe how my business is actually functioning. So those two lessons right there, or that main lesson, I should say, not two, but that main lesson right there, I think was probably the most powerful in making sure that as I move forward knowing that I'm building a business that could be sustainable, Yeah.
I love it. So many gems in there. First thing I definitely want to say, and I'm gonna keep saying this again, CEOs, nobody can tell the story of your business like you can, right? No shade to the grant writers at all. No shade. But I'm gonna tell you how you end up not getting a return on your investment because you think that the grant writers are magicians, but they don't know your business. So when you get that grant proposal back and it's pretty bland and generic, right? You can't be upset because you don't know your business. You don't know how to effectively communicate about your business. So you can't expect the grant writer to, right? All they can give you nice flowery words, right? But at the end of the day, if you're going to make that level of investment, you have to be able to clearly articulate the story of your organization, of your business. So I just want to put that out there. Like I said, no shade to the grant writer. But if you're going to spend money, we're going to spend the money wisely. Right, amen. Right. Amen. And that's, I'm just telling the truth. And so, but this is the truth, right? And so again, the grant application process is a marathon. It's not a sprint. But if you heard what Dr. Nadine said, because of the application that she had, she can actually take that application and what she did with the Boss Network and run the play for the rest of the year to 2025. Right? That's just one thing. But then she at least now has the sauce to go back and look at her numbers to say, you know what? What happened in 2024? Oh, I see based on my P&L, I probably, if I had a little bit more money to invest in this expense, then that will yield me a greater return, right, on this type of sale. And you see how it works? That's how your numbers help you. But even if she didn't do anything else, she can take what she did with that grant, with the boss grant, those questions and all of that, because you have to be able to answer these 3 questions. What are you going to do with the money? What will you do with it? You got to be detailed on how you're going to spend it, right? And then, most importantly, you got to communicate community impact. You got to be able to talk about community impact, right? So, and with all of that, you have to be able to practice that on your own. So Dr. Nadine was able to transfer that from the grant application to the pitch. And now she's more confident to be able to do that with other grants. She says now she's more confident to run the play with other grants. I promise y'all, as soon as you start getting that confidence and repetitions, just like at school, because I'm a former educator too, spelling tests, ABCs, your math facts, all those, they all stuck in our brain now due to repetition. That's how you're going to master this thing, y'all. So don't be discouraged. I also say, like, there's one just get in front of some people that's going to give you some feedback. Go ahead, Dr. Nadine.
What I use for the Boss Network, but what I really needed it for was to go to TBEX, which is the Travel Blogger Exchange this summer. So professional development. So I was like, you know what? This is only $1,000 grant, but I need to now figure out how do I want to shape this budget for exactly what I needed, and I needed it for the professional development. So I went back to our budget to see what I had already put aside for professional development this year based on last year, and was able to then fuse that together. So even though I'm using the same information from the winning grant, I'm still going through and being like, okay, how can I adapt this for what I actually need now and for what I actually need from this grant? Because that grant was a smaller grant, and I was like, this would be perfect just to help me cover some expenses from TBEX and, get out there to Puerto Rico and all that. But to show, like you said, community impact, that's what made me think about it. But to show that this is professional development. This is not just me trying to go to Puerto Rico. This is me actually going out there to this travel blogger exchange event and learning more to continue to build my business. But part of that was also taking what I had and not just doing a copy paste, but also adapting it around what we've discussed and what I actually needed at the time. So got my fingers crossed, hoping that one comes through one of these days.
I love it.
Yes.
And it will. We confident about it. We are confident. Yeah, I love it. So let's continue to keep talking about community impact. So Dr. Nadine also is a part of this travel community group, right? And she's been preaching the word about knowing your numbers with this group, because they've been all like, hey, they've been sending the hey big heads in the DM, right? And we love to see it, right? So talk a little bit about that too, Dr. Nadine. So like, once you get that, the epiphany, the revelation about how important, the numbers are, and communicating that back to your community, what has that experience been for you, and what type of communication has, transpired between you and your other community members?
Recently I went to TravelCon, and there was a nice like black community of travel creators, and everyone's moving and shaking. People are showing you how to pitch. When I say how to pitch, in this case, it is pitching brands and things like that, to form partnerships and all of that. But sometimes they come with a lot of money or a little bit of money, and there are creators out there who look amazing online, but then when you meet them in person, or you find out what they got going on behind the scenes, they got $3.30 to their name, and it's just like, what, girl? You was in Amalfi Coast, Italy last week. What's happening, But the reality is, there still needs to be some learning around how do we manage our funds in a world that really caters to the usual 9 to 5. So being a creative means that things are going to be different. There is no 9 to 5. Your money might come a little bit sporadically. Things are going to look a little bit different, in terms of how you save, how you spend, if retirement is a thing for you, all of those different types of things. You find people that will make $100,000 one year, and the next year they've made zero, for whatever reason. But that's when you realize that in these spaces, we have to really kind of create our own HR, right? We got to create our own like entity that is able to tell us like, this is what you need to do with the money that's coming in. You getting a thousand or a couple thousand from this one brand partnership, that does not mean you can blow all of it, because you don't know when the next brand. So all those conversations that we're having, I got in one of our Instagram groups, and I was like, hey, y'all, this is my accountant, if you want to hit her up. And immediately people were like double tapping, like, I just made my appointment, and that just went to show right there that that's something that we really need in our community. Like the travel community of people who travel but have full-time jobs is one thing, but the travel creatives are the ones who are like really stepping into something new and need that support of, as we continue to just show up in these different spaces as Black women, as Black men, that we haven't done before, we still need that back end to really help us make sure that we could sustain ourselves as individuals. We can build businesses around our brand if that's what we choose to do, all of those things. So that's one of the things that really, like at that conference, I was like, oh, I gotta tell the people about my people. Because I think that's the biggest thing for me, because eventually I am still an independent contractor in education, but I want this to be my full time, and I got to make sure that my structure is tight in order for it to be a successful full time, where I'm still impacting the community, I'm still doing what I need to do, and I can still eat more than ramen noodles when the day is done. So yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, man, I think just the importance of one having community is so important, right? But then also, as as a bookkeeper, as a financial person, we see, CEOs of all different, niches, right? So just being able to communicate to, the travel creative specifically, right? Like what expenses are ordinary and necessary? What are the probably the most general like or typical revenue streams that you guys have, right? Those are the type of conversations that we need to have to kind of set up money systems, right? So we say all the time, system save businesses. So once you start thinking about not just your entity, but just even like the money that comes in to your business, to think about what they call like the client journey or the customer journey. As soon as that customer looks at, Traveling Black Women's IG page and they get ready to engage with you, what does that look like? How do they purchase things? All to the, as soon as you get that money, in your email inbox or the notification, how do you continue to engage for them to continue, supporting your business? All that makes a difference in your revenue and also in your expenses. Because we talked about, like Dr. Nadine has travel books and stuff like that. How much does it cost for her to make that travel book versus her charging the particular price? Is that price, in alignment with what's going on in the travel industry? All those things make a difference, y'all, right? So, and you're not going to be able to know that unless you're in proper community, right? So, yeah, we can talk on and on about this. So if you don't have community, make sure you get around some other entrepreneurs specifically in your niche, but then also get around some other entrepreneurs, right? Because everybody going through, the same thing, right? And then just another shameless plug, especially for those of you guys who are thinking about, going into full-time entrepreneurship. We got an ebook called the Financial Freedom Roadmap. Y'all, please don't go out here road just thinking that, you're just going to leave your job. I'm telling you, please don't do that. Don't do it. I spent a whole year planning for mine, and it's still, life be life, and y'all, so you got to be prepared, for those types of things. So don't do that without talking to somebody. But get the free ebook, y'all. It's Financial Freedom Roadmap. Got 5 steps. I promise. Hopefully it'll bless your life, right? So just saying, I just be scared for people because they just have to. Social media out here just be selling, some hope dreams. Entrepreneurship is hard, y'all. It's lonely, but it's the resilience that the character building that comes from it. But don't go out here looking at the folks on these jet skis, and all that stuff like that. I mean, it's cool and all. I want you to enjoy your stuff, but y'all, it's more to it than that. It's more to it down to,
it's so
please don't leave your job like that.
It's so glamorized and it feels good. Like, I'm gonna quit my job and travel the world. And I mean, that is perfect. That would be the perfect ideal. But yeah, nobody wants to see you on the side of the street with a banjo talking about I quit my job to travel the world. I don't know. I don't know. Yes.
I'm just saying, but like you said, Dr. Nate, you gotta have strategy for that, right? Even in those things like that. So you just plan, y'all. Talk to somebody. Plan. Lord, please, please, please. All right. So we're about to wrap up. So as we wrap up, Dr. Nadine, we've had a phenomenal conversation. I told you we're gonna chop it up just like on our sessions. We do this all the time. So we talked about, the importance of, cohort programs. We talked about the importance of, what the grant application process looks like and what's required of you as the CEO. We talked about what pitching looks like and what's required of you. Dr. Nadine gave some amazing takeaways about, the importance of knowing your numbers and what that looked like for her and how that helped her build the confidence to apply for grants and, and pitch contests and things like that. So here's the question I ask everybody at the end of the podcast. So there are some CEOs. They may be startups, they may be seasoned, and they probably sitting there like, you know what? I don't even know what my business made at the end of quarter two. Quarter two ended in a couple of days, right? So Dr. Nadine, tell them one more time.
It's the best way to ask.
Why is it important for entrepreneurs to know their numbers? It's the best
way to ask for. I mean, you can't ask for something and you're not a good steward of what you have right now. You know what I mean? So if you know your numbers and you're like, all right, I want to, go up for this small business pitch. I want to, go up for this small business grant. I want to ask my aunt, whatever it is, it is knowing that what I'm doing right now is already in a good position. I'm aware of what I need. I'm aware of how things are moving. And I know that, whatever I'm given, I'll be able to continue to do well with it. And that to me is what's important. That's the way I see it. Because I'm just like, if I'm asking someone for something and I'm not confident with what I already have, then they can be just putting their money into an empty pot, right? I don't have anything to prove to them that I'm going to be a good steward of what they give me. So I think that's why it's the most important to know my numbers, because otherwise, you just kind of out there making money, spending money, and nothing's happening for you. It's not going anywhere. So, and it's the best way to stay sustainable. If you know your numbers and you know what you need, then you know how to target what you need as well. And I think that's one of the biggest things about being an entrepreneur and wanting your business to last, whether you want it to be a business as big as a Walmart or Amazon, or just a business that's as big to make sure that you don't have to work ever again for anybody else again. Whichever size you're looking for, I think the sustainability is still the most important piece. And you have to know what you're doing inside and out in order to make sure that you can keep what you're doing going. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right, y'all. So you heard it here first.
That's the way I see it.
Main reason you need to
I
know
don't
your
know.
hustle,
I
you ask for more money. Right. That's I'm just saying. I'm with you there, Dr. Nadine. So yeah, so you heard it here first, y'all. So
Thank
Dr.
you.
Nadine, you know how you right here in my heart. You right here. You right here in my heart, Nadine. I appreciate you just being the awesome person that you are.
Thank
You
you.
you're just a big ball of just loving energy. I just love being around you, and you're just such a light. I'm for real. Y'all go check out her Instagram
Okay, so
page and
yes,
all
it
that
is
stuff.
Traveling
Oh,
Black
that's another thing.
Women
Dr.
everywhere.
Nadine,
So
tell the folks
Traveling
how
Black
they can
Women,
connect with
women
you.
WOMEN everywhere. That's Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, X is the vowels are all out because the character limit is short. So it's Traveling Black BLK Women WMN on X. Pinterest, anywhere you can probably find us. And of course, our blog is www.travelingblackwomen.com. We have our YouTube page and our podcast as well. So just type us in. You'll find us.
I love it. I love it. So, y'all, thank you so much. Thank you again, Dr. Nadine, for just sharing your experiences with us and our audience. So, y'all, thank you again for spending time with us on the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. I'm your host, Sonia Jones of GIP Financial, your Mr. Miyagi of Money. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Y'all take care. Thank y'all so much for listening to the From Chaos to Clarity Unleash Your Business Potential podcast. Again, I'm Sonia Jones of GRP Financials, your Mr. Miyagi of Money, but I got a couple of homework assignments for you before you leave this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also leave a comment and let us know what your biggest takeaways were from this episode. And if you are looking for bookkeeping assistance or you need a money thought buddy, make sure that you go to our website, www.gipfinancials.com, and click on the schedule a consultation button at the top of our website, little green box. And you can schedule a discovery call and talk to one of our teammates to see if we're a good fit. All right. See you guys on the next episode. Take care.